You are listening to the Liberal Grouch.
People, all going somewhere, all with their own thoughts, their own ideas, all with their own personalities.
Ever since I was a child, all I've ever wanted to be was a journalist, to write stories, to be on the radio, to be an observer of the human condition. Throughout my professional life, in radio, newspapers, and as a writer with the federal government, I've been true to the journalistic ethic of telling the truth, of being accurate, of trying to tell both sides of the story. But I've learned there are people who don't want their story told. In fact, they will do anything to keep you from telling their story. Individually, they are weak, small people who hide in the dark. But when they form a pack, they become dangerous. Not just to the individual trying to tell their story, but to the very concept of a free press. They want their side of the story told, not the full story. And when a strong, honest, progressive voice comes along, one who captures the ears of honest people, it frightens them. It makes them crazy.
Pull the string. Dance to that which one is created for.
They will do whatever they have to do by whatever means necessary to silence that voice, either through legal means or other means. The only thing necessary for evil to succeed is if good people do nothing. I choose to do something. I will stand in the face of this wolf pack of right-wing lunatics until I am either silenced by legal means or until they kill me. They will need to find either some way to throw me in jail for telling the truth, or else there will be blood on the microphone.
Well, there you are. This is the Liberal Grouch, Bill Schmalfeldt, speaking to you from his bedroom studio near Baltimore, Maryland. It's a pre-recorded episode, and I'm afraid that's how it must be. After 15 years with Parkinson's disease, I find myself incapable of doing live radio without having to start and stop and start and stop and stop and start. The voice just isn't what it used to be, and I find I have to take frequent breaks. But let that not stop us from having a good time at the expense of the people we talk about in the opening segment. The people who become terribly disturbed when you poke one of their sacred cows. Oh, they don't mind posting pictures of you with a photoshopped tip of a penis on the top of your head where children can see it. But if you mock their dead friend, Andrew Breitbart, well, there will be hell to pay. I don't mind paying hell. Do you? Oh, I hear the screaming of each ne'er-do-well. Andy's in hell. The demons employ their devices so well. Andy's in hell. Does the devil feel what I feel when he comes near? I soil myself audibly. You'd think that he could hear. I got what I deserved, as one might tell. Andy's in hell. Lucifer, Beelzebub, you know it well. Andy's in hell. The stench of the sulfurs, a menacing smell. Andy's in hell. I was almost home, safe and warm, when pop went my heart. I found myself in this place, my soul all torn apart. Wish there was a way out of this fiery cell. Andy's in I don't believe in hell per se, but it sounds like a terribly loud, noisy place, full of terribly loud, noisy people. My name is Bill Schmalfeldt. I am the Liberal Grouch. I hope you will enjoy the show today, and I hope you will go to our home website, www.liberalgrouch, that's all one word, liberalgrouch.net, and take a look at the blog, the Grouch blog, and the product page, where you'll find several of our comedy CDs available. I find myself in something of a peculiar position. I feel like I'm more creative comedically at this point in my life than I've ever been, but the concept of doing stand-up comedy, the idea of getting in front of an audience doesn't bother me so much. It's the standing up. You see, I've had Parkinson's disease for 15 years. Now, if I were to secure the services of a publicist or an agent who could book local appearances for me here in the Baltimore, D.C. metro area, well, I could do those from my wheelchair. But international travel, it just doesn't seem like it's in the cards for me anymore. I've had Parkinson's for 15 years. It's part of my life, and I try to have a little fun with it when we can. But these days I find myself less motivated by writing jokes than I do by writing sketch comedy. Think of me as a one-person sketch comedy machine. If you were to take Firesign Theater or Monty Python and boil them down to one person, well, I think you'd get something like this. As I glanced at the TV, some bleach blonde nitwit cried Ebola, Ebola, Ebola. She was clearly another scaremongering twit. Ebola, Ebola, Ebola. So I turned to my wife, who there next to me sat, and I got her attention and said, "Look at that! They must think we're as dumb as a kangaroo rat." Ebola, Ebola, Ebola. My wife rolled her eyes just as she oft times will. Ebola, Ebola, Ebola. So why do you sit here and watch right-wing swill? Ebola, Ebola, Ebola. Don't you have anything more productive to do than rant at the TV, which cannot hear you, and complain about Fox News' right-wing point of view? Ebola, Ebola, Ebola. I took a deep breath as I rose from my chair. Ebola, Ebola, Ebola. On TV, that numbskull was still in mid-scare. Ebola, Ebola, Ebola. Well, if you remain callous to corporate-owned news, I said to my wife, in a self-righteous muse, then don't be surprised when the Koch brothers use Ebola, Ebola, Ebola.
Hello once again, my most excellent friends. This is the most holy Reverend Bishop Apostle Paul Tangerine, pastor of the First Tabernacle Assembly of Holiness, for his name's sake, in the righteous blood of the disciples of God and the one true Jesus of St. Petersburg, Florida. Coming to you today with a pair of special guests in the studio, Mark and Sharon, and they've asked me not to use their last name because they feel God has blessed them plenty. Isn't that right, Mark and Sharon?
Yes, Your Holiness.
Oh, that's not necessary. Just call me Bishop.
Well, all righty there, Bishop. Yeah, my wife and I, we agree on this, don't we, honey? God has certainly blessed us over this past year, showing us His love by sending us a deformed baby to love and cherish as our own.
Oh, my goodness, how lucky you are. It is the rare couple that gets to experience God's love in such a drastic and dramatic fashion. You must feel blessed indeed, Sharon.
I think what Sharon is trying to say is that, yes, we do feel remarkably blessed, and we thank all the people who saw our Facebook page and knew about our situation.
Well, tell us about your situation, Mark.
Well, Bishop?
I think I'd rather you call me Apostle.
All right, then, Apostle. I believe God began to show us His tender, merciful love when my wife Sharon had the ultrasound that showed that our firstborn child was going to be our firstborn child, I should say, did not have much of a head.
Oh my, that's remarkable. Don't you think that's remarkable, Sharon?
Yeah, I think they call that condition. What do they call it, Sharon?
I don't know.
I believe the term for it is an encephalitic baby, meaning it ain't got no head.
Well, it had a head, Bishop, Apostle, but not much of one, you know. All the pictures we took of it after it was born, we made sure we put a hat on it so it wouldn't scare all the kids who were looking at the Facebook page.
What kind of blessing has this been for you, Mark?
Well, Apostle.
Why don't you just call me Reverend Tangerine?
All right, Reverend Tangerine. I believe the blessing was when we found out after the ultrasound that we had a choice between having a safe and clean abortion right there in the city, or forcing my beloved wife here, Sharon, to carry that baby full term. Of course, no childbirth is entirely without risk, and, well, we had plenty of risk, that's for darn sure. Sharon ruined more than one pair of hospital gowns just by bleeding clean through them, didn't you, honey?
What other ways do you feel God has blessed you with this wonderful, miraculous birth of a child missing parts of its head?
Well, I think what God is trying to teach us here, Reverend...
That's most reverend.
I'm sorry. Most Reverend.
No, God.
What I think God is trying to teach us is that we should be humble and grateful for every gift we get. And one thing about God is He don't tell you how He's going to bless you. He might bless you with $1 million. He might bless you with a horrible, disfigured monster baby like He did to us. You just got to be grateful for whatever you get. And we got lots of gifts from folks that read our Facebook page, didn't we, honey?
Is your wife experiencing a working of the Spirit right now? For instance, is that her talking in tongues?
No, she gets like that just a lot lately. I mean, it might be a working of the Spirit. I don't know. You'd be more in a position to know a thing like that. If a working of the Spirit also includes wetting the bed every night, or trying to run a sharp knife across your wrist from time to time. You know how women get.
Eyes filled with mucus.
Actually, I've never touched the sinful flesh of a woman, nor will I ever.
Well, that's probably not a bad idea. At any rate, all them nice people that sent us money and sent pictures of their own deformed dead babies. It was truly a miracle to see God's working in such a fantastic way.
Well, Mark and Sharon, I couldn't agree more. Sometimes God shows His mercy and love by throwing a tornado down on a town, giving the survivors a chance to be thankful. And then there's that Ebola crisis. You know the one I'm talking about, right, Sharon?
Yeah.
Giving the people that get infected with that thing a chance to thank God for not dying, and maybe giving them an opportunity to reach out to the Lord in their last dying, blood-spattering moments.
Amen, Most Reverend.
That's Apostle.
Amen, Apostle.
So, Mark and Sharon, do you have any wisdom, any advice to share with other couples who might be listening right now, who got a woman with a baby in her belly right now who ain't got no head?
Well, it's like I said, the baby had a head. I mean, let's not make more out of it than what it was. There was a head there, just wasn't much of one. I mean, there was a face, and there was 2 eyes. At least we think it had eyes. It never opened its eyelids. But it lived for 27 minutes. So we treasure every moment we spent with that baby, don't we, honey? And considering how blessed we were by God and by the people that saw that Facebook page that my banker suggested we put up so we could pay for the house, me and Sharon, we're going to go home and start working on another little blessing from God right away. Isn't that right, honey?
Pain.
Sharon?
No more pain.
Sharon, where are you going?
My,
Sharon, I didn't tell you could leave.
You have upset her somehow.
Sharon, you get your pretty little ass
She's
back
getting
here and
up
talk to the Reverend.
Leaving the studio.
God
Walking
damn it,
right out
Sharon.
through the door there. Maybe she just wants to go start the car and warm it up for you or something.
Hey, if we're gonna have another
like a
deformed
little
baby,
idiot
we're gonna
wife
have
ought
to get to
yeah?
sexing, and I mean real soon. We don't have time for you to heal up.
No counting for some folks, I guess.
Jesus Christ.
This has been the Most Reverend Bishop Apostle Paul Tangerine, pastor of the First Tabernacle Assembly of Holiness for his name's sake, in the righteous blood of the disciples of God and the one true Jesus, in St. Petersburg, Florida. Send your money. Thank you.
You're listening to the Liberal Grouch, and you just heard The Monstrous Love of God. And before that, with apologies to Gilbert and Sullivan, Ebola, Ebola, Ebola. I'm Bill Schmalfeldt, and you can find both of those cuts on my newest album, available on Distro Kid Records. The album, Andrew Ripefart, is still dead, and I ain't feeling so good myself. It's actually hit the shelves today. Today being the 20th of October, 2014. The album, you can buy the whole album for $9.90 or single cuts for 99 cents each. It's an MP3 download. If it's not already there, you'll be able to find it soon on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon Beats Music. You can search for the album on distrokid.com, and soon, when they bring their shit across the ocean, you'll find it on Deezer.com as well. I've got another album I'm proud of. It's another recent release, and it's available on CD Baby, which means you can get it as either an MP3 download or as an actual CD, coffee coaster kind. The album is The Liberal Grouch, and here's a cut from that album called The Culling of the Conservatives.
It began with a few words toward the end of the president's regularly scheduled Saturday morning radio broadcast. But before I wrap up our chat today, I'd like to say a few words about a dangerous new fad that's beginning to take hold in our high schools and colleges. Apparently, in the belief that it will get them high, or stoned, as the kids say, youngsters are taking rusty old railroad spikes and hammering them into their own foreheads with ball-peen hammers. I cannot stress this enough. This is a dangerous action, one I intend to look into. I will appoint Vice President Biden to head up a blue ribbon panel to see what we can do to stop this dangerous, self-destructive fad before it gets out of hand. Thank you, and God bless the United States of America. On Sunday, the First Lady appeared on Meet the Press, Vice President Biden appeared on Face the Nation, and Attorney General Eric Holder appeared on ABC's This Week, where he explained that pulling up railroad spikes for the purpose of driving them into one's own skull could be looked at as a criminal activity, because if a train were to derail due to missing railroad spikes, whoever removed the spikes could be considered as liable for the tragedy. The conservative reaction began on Monday morning with the Fox and Friends show.
Well, the nanny state is at it again, telling Americans what they can and cannot do with their own brains.
Right you are, Steve. In an effort to frighten American parents, President Obama has whipped up this railroad spike gate out of thin air. Gretchen, have you ever heard of kids driving railroad spikes into their own heads?
Monkeys are adorable.
Neither have I. And here to tell the truth about this fantasy scare tactic is Dr. Elmo Critter, a neurosurgeon from the University of Mississippi Medical Center. Dr. Critter, are kids getting high from driving railroad spikes into their own heads?
No, that's silly. Driving a railroad spike into the frontal lobes of your brain would perhaps produce a mild sense of euphoria at the best, but then there's the pain of getting the spike through your forehead skin, your skull, and the brain's protective covering.
But wouldn't it kill you, Doc?
Well, not necessarily. As if you're really dedicated, as you can see in the animation, if you're very careful with the placement of the spike, locate it directly between the brain's two hemispheres, you could likely survive having a railroad spike driven in between them.
Brains have hemispheres, like globes.
Globes are round. Well, we learn something new every morning on Fox and Friends. Reports of self-induced railroad spike brain injuries and death began to trickle into newsrooms, and Rush Limbaugh picked up on the controversy for his Monday noontime program.
It's just wild that Obama is scaring kids this way. Just like when his wife, Queen Jumbo, told the kids they should eat nothing but lettuce and filtered water while she gobbled down the French fries. It's just a bunch of nonsense. And as you saw on Fox and Friends this morning, a leading neurosurgeon said that driving a railroad spike into your own head is a perfectly safe thing to do if you do it carefully. Like smoking, like drinking. There are risks you take. But who is Obama to tell you you can't take a risk? That's what made America great. Where's Mayor Bloomberg on this? He said you can't have a 32-ounce big gulp. Well, faithful listeners across the fruited plains, I have just finished 3 32-ounce big gulps. And I will now demonstrate just how safe it is to drive a railroad spike into your own skull. Now, if I say anything even slightly stupid in the next few minutes, it'll be because of the state of euphoria caused by the penetration of the frontal lobes directly between the two hemispheres of the brain. Now watch as I, Rush Limbaugh, once again prove the nanny state does not have your best interests at heart and only wants to control you. Rusty, the spike, and the hammer, please. Thank you. And you want to make sure you use a clean spike for this. We can't emphasize that enough. Use a clean railroad spike because you don't want to get an infection. That could be deadly. All right? Here we go. Now I've marked the spot on my noble, manly forehead where the doc on Fox and Friends said the spike should go. And we're off.
Despite Rush Limbaugh's death as a result of driving a railroad spike into his own brain, the various Tea Party organizations started the meme that Obama had somehow provided a poisoned railroad spike to Limbaugh, and set about to prove, once and for all, that driving railroad spikes into your own foreheads was a perfectly safe, fun, family activity if done carefully. At a mass gathering of Tea Party activists, Dr. Jerome Corsi, one of the original Swift boaters and senior staff writer for WorldNet Daily, addressed a group of 500 angry white Americans who did not like being told what they could or could not drive into their own skulls.
Obama isn't even an American, let alone a doctor. How the hell does he think he can get away with telling honest, patriotic, God-fearing white American men and women what they can and cannot use with their brains? Don't raise your railroad spikes to the skies in your right hand. Grasp the ball-peen hammers in your left hand. Place the point of the spike right between your eyes, just above the bridge of your nose. Now you want to angle the spike so that it goes straight in, okay? Parents with small children, do this to yourself first, then to your children after you're finished. On my mark, is everybody ready? Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
There were hundreds of such Tea Party gatherings all across the nation on Tuesday. At last report, 1.5 million Americans were killed by driving railroad spikes into their own heads, and that death toll continues to rise every day. But oddly enough, not everyone who attempted this fatal accomplishment was killed. In fact, when Sarah Palin addressed a Tea Party gathering on March 15th, she seemed just fine.
Kind of like getting a nipple pierced, but with a lot more blood. Other than that, piece of cake.
Railroad spikes and hammers bearing the CPAC logo were handed out. They're still removing bodies from the conference center at this hour.
You are listening to the Liberal Grouch.
Hi, friends. I'm Bill Schmalfeldt, and it's time for today's Few Moments of Truth. Today, I'd like to present the answer to racism. If you want to end racism, just stop scaring the white folks. You know, it really could not be more simple. Racism, if it still exists in America, can be broken down into one word: presentation. And whose fault is this? Is it Whitey, who's laying out the black man's clothes for him, selecting his jewelry, or forcing him to make pornographic videos with predominant white celebrities who are famous for making a pornographic video with a famous person of a darker complexion? You know why there's so much hate and misunderstanding out there today compared to, say, 100 years ago? Why is there so much conflict between the authorities and the people we hired them to oppress? It's simple, really. You black people just have to learn that white people find you frightening. Stop scaring us and we'll ask the police to stop killing you when you're not armed, choking you to death for selling loose cigarettes, or beating the black off of a 51-year-old grandma with leather-gloved fists on the side of a highway where everyone can catch it on video. Just remember, the police are here to protect the white people from the rampaging, angry blacks who are sick and tired of being slaughtered like sheep for the crime of walking while black. Therefore, my message of peace to all Afro-Americans of the Negro persuasion is this: stop scaring white people. Your rap and hop music and all that gangsta stuff, for instance. And then there's that word. You know the one I'm talking about, the one that rhymes with Tigger, and we can't say it because it offends you, and even if we put an A instead of an ER at the end of it and say Tigga instead of Tigger, why do you get to use that word when we can't? That was our word first. Semantics aside, if you'd follow my advice and take a few public relations suggestions from someone like me who wants nothing but the best for you, you'll get a lot farther in your quest to be treated equally and no longer be beaten like dogs, choked to death, or shot in the top of your head while falling down because you frightened a policeman with your large blackness. Just go back to your roots. You understand the concept of roots, right? Go back to doing what you're good at. Menial service. Bowing and scraping. Make the white man comfortable. Make him smile. It's like that time-honored song, Old Man River.
Don't look up and don't look down. You don't just make the white folks frown. Bend your knees and bow till you're dead.
We know it's not your fault for being black. And it's not our fault either. So just stop being so doggone scary. And we, as God-fearing, Judeo-Christian, not so much the first part, white people, will treat you with the respect you think you deserve. Old habits die hard, not like some unarmed kid getting shot in the top of his head or some unarmed guy getting choked to death by a cop. These inbred white bread attitudes will take some time to change. But when they do, we promise, you can be just as equal as us. And that's the truth. Honest Injun. I'm Bill Schmalfeldt, and that's today's Few Moments of Truth. That was another selection from my album, Stop Scaring the White People. If you'd like to hear samples of all the cuts on that album, the Liberal Grouch, visit the website, liberalgrouch.net, and right there on the front page, we've got a media player for you. Gives you 30-second samples of every cut on the album, which, by the way, according to CD Baby, they tell me it's already been distributed to an official shitload of music sites like Apple iTunes, Rhapsody, MediaNet, Nokia, and Prodicon. Is that right? Great Indie Music, Amazon MP3, Xbox Music, Spotify, 24/7, Omniphone, Simfy, Google Music Store, iHeartRadio, RDO, Move, M-U-V-E Music, Slacker Radio, Shazam, Yandex, Samsung Music Hub, Beyond Oblivion, and Akazoo. I don't generally include this in my resume because it was such a short time period in my life, but in 2007, I was actually the first Broadway show tune program director for Slacker Radio. I threw together the music list for them and programmed the channel for a while until they started cutting salaries, and it really wasn't worth my time or effort anymore. Hope you're enjoying the show, and you can tweet us at Liberal Grouch CD. It's all one word, at Liberal Grouch CD, or become a fan of our Facebook fan page, www.facebook.com/WMS Broadcasting. We've got a whole lot going on, as a matter of fact. Not an Audible.com member yet. Can I ask you why not? Well, let me suggest something to you. If you become an Audible.com member, here's how we can increase our donations to the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Disease Research. If you join Audible.com and your very first purchase happens to be my book, I get an extra $50, and that $50 is part of my contribution to the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Disease Research. So, you know you want to listen to audio books. You can lay in bed, you can put on the headphones, you can listen to books. It's an incredibly easy way to read without having to hold a dead tree book in your hand. So, join Audible.com, that's AUDIBLE.com, purchase Put On Your Parky Face as your first book on Audible.com, and watch me send that $50 check to Michael J. Fox so he can use it to cure Parkinson's disease. Okay? I mean, you do want to cure this thing, right?
Bill Schmalfeldt is serving notice. It's time for Parkinson's disease patients to stop being invisible. It's time for a nationwide effort to raise awareness about this crippling degenerative neurological disorder and the havoc it wreaks on American families. Approximately 1.5 million people currently have a PD diagnosis, with 50,000 new cases each year. Having had PD himself since 2000 at age 45, Bill volunteered for experimental brain surgery in 2007. In his book, Put on Your Parky Face, Bill spins a humorous, poignant, sometimes angry tale about his life with this incurable progressive neurological condition. Now that he has retired, he's planning to use his remaining time, focus and energy to help fund the research that will find the cure. In fact, 100% of the author proceeds from this book will be donated to Parkinson's research charities. This book should be owned by anyone who has Parkinson's, anyone who knows someone with PD, or anyone who might get Parkinson's someday. In other words, you. Put on Your Parky Face, now an audiobook, available at audible.com, iTunes, and amazon.com. Visit www.audiobooksbybill.com for more information. That's all one word, audiobooksbybill.com.
You are listening to the Liberal Grouch.
Hello, my most gentle friends. This is the Most Reverend Apostle Bishop Evangelist Biff Buford from the First Church of the Holy God in Righteousness, for his name's sake assembly of apostles and disciples of the one true Jesus. We broadcast from our facilities in East Elbow, Alabama, and although I fear this is much like shutting the barn door after the horses got out, I'm afraid I must warn you about something that it's probably already too late to stop. When the Boy Scouts of America decided to give in to the lure of money, which they say they need to continue to pay for operation expenses, instead of doing the word of the most holy one true Jesus and God, this became inevitable. We take you now to your typical Boy Scout Jamboree campout, where Jimmy and Kenny are settling down for the night.
Gosh, Jimmy, I sure had fun being a Boy Scout today.
So did I, Kenny. And I'm happy that they finally let people like me into the Boy Scouts.
What do you mean, people like you, Jimmy?
You know, Kenny, boys that are attracted to other boys.
Oh, heck, I'm attracted to other boys, too. Girls are ucky.
That's not the way I'm talking about, Kenny. I'm talking about sexual attraction. How old are you anyway?
I'm 9 years old.
I'm 11, and I already know a lot of stuff, Kenny.
Like what, Jimmy?
Like, you know how when you go wee-wee, it's usually yellow?
Yeah?
Well, I can show you a way to turn it white and creamy.
Gosh, that sounds like a neat trick. Is it magic?
It will be for one of us.
Wait a minute. What are you doing? Why are you pulling down my pants?
Because I can't put my pee-pee in your pooter hole when you have your pants up.
I don't want you to put your pee-pee in my pooter hole, Jimmy.
Well, you have to, Kenny. It's the new Boy Scout rules. Ever since they decided to let boys like me into the Boy Scouts, what they're saying is, you have to accept us. And that means you have to accept my pee-pee in your poo hole. Understand?
Well, I'm gonna go tell the scout now.
Well, you go right ahead and do that, Kenny, but you're not gonna like what happens.
Why? What's gonna happen?
Well, they'll convene a scout council and put you on trial for the crime of non-diversity.
Gosh, that sounds bad.
Oh, it is bad, Kenny. Everybody wants diversity. You understand?
Not really, I don't.
Hi, I'm Scoutmaster Ted. What's going on here? Why aren't you boys asleep yet?
Well, gee, Scoutmaster Ted, little Kenny over here won't let me put my pee-pee in his poo hole.
Is that true, Kenny?
Yeah, but I don't want him to put his pee-pee in my poo hole.
Now, Kenny, remember, a Boy Scout must respect diversity.
I still don't see what diversity has to do with letting another boy put his pee-pee in my pool.
See, Scoutmaster Ted, he's committing a hate crime right here in the Boy Scout camporee.
If you want to stay in the Boy Scouts, you have to follow all the Boy Scout rules. And that means accepting the fact that Jimmy is a homosexual. And that means accepting the fact that he is attracted to you and wants to put his pee-pee in your poo hole.
Don't I have any say in the matter at all?
Why, no.
Of course not.
Well, gee, if it means staying in the Boy Scouts.
Now, that's the can-do spirit I expect out of Troop 69. Mind if I stay and watch and take some pictures? Oh, by the way, I am heterosexual, just so you know.
That's fine with me if it's okay with Kenny.
I don't think anything will ever be okay for me again for the rest of my life.
So you see, gentle listeners, this is what the Boy Scouts have sold their souls for. 30 pieces of silver, so that poor little Kenny has to accept little Jimmy's pee-pee in his poo hole. Is that what you envisioned when you sent your child off to the Boy Scouts? This is why our country is damned, damned, damned. And the most holy, true God of Jesus is going to take out his righteous indignation on us, just like he did to Sodom and Gomorrah. So be ready for fiery death, which will come at any time, as God shows us his love by destroying every man, woman, and child. I am the most reverend apostle, Bishop Evangelist Biff Buford, with this message of peace and love from the First Church of the Holy God in Righteousness, for his name's sake, assembly of apostles and disciples of the one true Jesus. Sleep well.
Chapter 1. How I Wanted to Be a Tea Partier. I dearly wanted to be a member of the Tea Party. I truly did. I'm white, middle-aged. I hold some moderate progressive views, but I also think government spending has gotten out of hand. I'm a patriot, a veteran of 9 years' service in the United States Navy. So when the Tea Party held a massive rally in Washington, D.C., I went there. I tried to mingle with them. I tried to fit in. But I just couldn't do it. My problem? I believe in God. I believed at the time his admonitions to us, as revealed in his holy word, the Bible, that we should treat each other as we wish to be treated, that we should care for the sick, that we should show charity to the poor, that whatever we do for the least of our brothers, it's as if we're doing it for Christ Jesus himself. These Tea Party members at the rallies I attended, they were carrying horrible signs. They were cursing at African American congressmen, spitting on them, calling them names. I went home feeling that this just was not right. It wasn't right at all. I had been present at some of the great moments of the past. I heard Dr. King give his great I Have a Dream speech in 1963. I was 8 years old. I was 13 when Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy were murdered just weeks apart in 1968. I had been raised by hard-working Democrats who believed that you had to earn your own way in life, but that God insisted we help those who were having trouble. So here I was, in the middle of this screaming crowd of my fellow middle-aged white people. They were calling President Obama a communist, calling him a Marxist, calling him a Muslim, all of which, of course, are lies. These people who, to a person, benefit from the LBJ Great Society, which sprang from JFK's New Frontier, were now being used as tools by a right-wing machine, I felt. A machine that fooled them into believing that they were not acting against their own best interests. I went home, depressed and disillusioned. How can you call yourself a Christian and knowingly bear false witness? How can you call yourself a Christian and tell a sick person to take care of himself because you won't do it? How can you call yourself a Christian and mock a person for the color of his skin? None of it made any sense. That is, until later that night. An angel appeared to me in a dream. Dressed in glowing golden robes, the angel handed me a large volume of typed, double-spaced manuscript text, Courier New font, 12 picas.
It is not the Tea Partiers who are wrong,
the angel said.
It's their Bible. It's been misinterpreted. For what you now have in your hands is God's word as he meant for it to be read. Go, therefore, unto the nation and the world, make them aware of this new, correct translation of God's word into the English vernacular, easy for the dimmest of your Tea Party people to understand. They commit no wrong in God's eyes. Tell them to keep up the good work and vote Republican.
The angel disappeared, and when I woke up, the manuscript was still clutched in my hands. I leafed through it, and by golly, the angel was right. The Tea Partiers weren't violating God's word by calling for government to get out of health care. They weren't being hypocrites for accepting Medicare and Social Security while hating those who receive other forms of government assistance. Their racial prejudices, their inexplicable hatred of things they didn't understand, it was all right there in God's newly revealed word. So, as the angel told me, it's time to go forth into the nations and the world and spread his new word. Greed is okay. It's not lying if you do it for a good reason. Theft is perfectly fine as long as the person you're stealing from is a sucker or otherwise deserves it. Listen for yourselves in these following chapters. Alrighty, what you heard there was Like Sheep to the Ravenous Homosexual Wolf from the Liberal Grouch album. Then from part 1 of a 3-CD set called The Holy Bible, the Tea Party version. You heard chapter 1, How I Wanted to Be a Tea Party Member. This Teabagger Bible is already available on Amazon and iTunes. Just go there, search for The Holy Bible, Revised Tea Party Version, and you'll find all 3 volumes. $7.99 for volumes 1 and 2, $6.23 for volume 3, and each chapter, only 89 cents. And where else are you going to find eternal salvation at such low bargain basement prices? Like the other books on the DK label, it's on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon, Beats Music, Distro Kid, and when Deezercom gets over here, it'll be there too. Matter of fact, I'll probably be using Distro Kid for my distributions from now on. It's nice to have a hard copy CD, but man, it's expensive. Now, my latest album on DK Records, Andrew Ripefart is still dead, and I ain't feeling so great myself. We've got a lot more music in that one than we did in the previous albums, but you know what they say, U.S. copyright law, fair use for parody, so they are clearly labeled as parody. Let's hear a couple cuts from that as we wrap things up tonight here on the Liberal Grouch.
I am the very model of a modern right-wing idiot. I only watch the Fox News and I like the Fox and Friends a lot. I know about Obama and I know about his place of birth. It wasn't in Hawaii, though, and not on this side of the earth. I know about his Muslim faith, although he went to Christian church, and you would know this too if you would care to do a Google search. He sacrificed Benghazi just to please his Islam overlords. Overlords. How do I... I've got it. A fact that we could learn for sure by using Cheney's waterboard. The fact that we could learn for sure by using Cheney's waterboard. The fact that we could learn for sure by using Cheney's waterboard. The fact that we could learn for sure by using Cheney's waterboards. I'm very good at picking out the bullshit from the real news. I do my very best to block out all prevailing liberal views in short in conversations where I demonstrate my pundit wit. I am the very model of a modern wingnut idiot. In short, in conversations where he demonstrates his pundit wit, he is the very model of a modern wingnut idiot. I know our Christian history. The founders were religious men. I know that they resisted Satan's evil time and time again. These men were godly Christians and they daily proved their bravery. It only took them several decades to get rid of slavery. Some say that they were deists, and I really don't know what that means. I think that means they love the Lord much more than even collard greens. And when I pledge allegiance to the flag, I feel a special thrill. Special. It is. And he who disagrees with me is just a non-essential shill. And he who disagrees with me is just a non-essential shill. And he who disagrees with me is just a non-essential shill. And he who disagrees with me is just a non-essential shill. Then I can sight a gun to kill from more than 90 yards away. A skill that no one doubts will come to be important any day. When contemplating tolerance, equality, and other shit, I am the very model of a modern wingnut idiot. When contemplating tolerance, equality, and other shit, he is the very model of a modern wingnut idiot. When I can see society is heading down a sewer drain, it makes me feel as if I have a red-hot spike inside my brain. Our leaders are all useless and are truly ineffectual. They let the liberals teach our kids how to be homosexual. And when I see our nation treating God with blatant disrespect, I know that he's a jealous God who'll kill us if we're left unchecked. It's very plain to see the right wing has to save the USA. Save the USA. Save the USA. Or we will wind up like the Greeks and forced at gunpoint to be gay. Or we will wind up like the Greeks and forced at gunpoint to be gay. Or we will wind up like the Greeks and forced at gunpoint to be gay. Or we will wind up like the Greeks and forced at gunpoint to be gay. We need a revolution, and I think that I'm well suited for committing an atrocity that's sure to start a civil war. But this time we'll control the outcome, kick their ass and never quit, because I'm the very model of the modern right-wing idiot. But this time we'll control the outcome, kick their ass and never quit, because he's the very model of the modern right-wing idiot.
Three little cable news nets we hear every day on your TV. Not very bright, you must agree. Three little news nets we look very close and you will find there's only one thing on our mind.
Keeping an eye on the bottom line.
Three little news nets we. Three little networks all on cable, covering stuff as best we're able, keeping the government unstable. Three little news nets we. Three little news nets we. One little news net is Fox News, who misinformed with right-wing views.
Don't care for Muslims or Negroes.
Three little news nets we. Three little news nets we. Fox has the ratings, so you see. CNN has a legacy.
That leaves just MSNBC.
Three little news nets we. Three little news nets we. Three little nets love disasters, hawking disease or terror blasters, all to enrich our corporate masters. We are the cable news. We are the cable news. Please watch MSNBC.
Wolf Blitzer reporting.
How come you got to say his name?
Well, I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm Bill Schmalfeldt. This is the Liberal Grouch podcast, a production of Spreaker.com. You can find it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We'll upload it onto the website. And if you like it, come back and listen next time we load up another one. Remember, those books are all available. You can find out all the information you need just by going to my website, www.liberalgrouch.net. That's one word, liberalgrouch.net. Love to have you tweet me up at liberalgrouchcd. That's all one word, at liberalgrouchcd. Love to have you as a Facebook fan as well, if you can find the time in your busy schedule. Come on over to https://facebook.com.wms broadcasting. And remember,
it is later.